My why is because I believe every single person deserves to be heard. That every single person has greatness within them.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Master Your Life. I'm Kate McKay, and really this podcast is about people's stories, about the transformative powers that exist in our life, our hardships, our challenges, and the grit and determination that we tap into in order to achieve excellence, in order to achieve greatness, in order to achieve peace. And the key word today is prosperity. Jon Sabes, welcome to the show. Nice to have you here.
Thanks, Kay. Great to be here.
I'm psyched. We were rambling at the beginning. I'm like, no, hold this. Let me hit record. So I'm just going to do a quick intro and just tell you a little bit about Jon for our audience. And then we're going to get right on into this because we have lots to discuss. So Jon is a pioneer in longevity and also financial services. What a cool bridge, I believe, and a perfect subject to talk about prosperity. Today, we have an amazing guest. He's redefining how we think about financial security and healthy aging. So he's not only a successful entrepreneur, he's also an author, and we're going to talk about his book, A Visionary in Longevity and Financial Services. And this is such a cool bridge. I can't wait to get into this. Are you full-time or part-time in Mexico?
Part-time.
But he's like super active and fit kind of guy. You can kind of tell if you guys are watching it. So he spent years in the intersection of biotechnology, actuarial science, and finance. And his new book, Healthy, Wealthy Longevity, serves as a roadmap for anyone looking to better align their health and finances towards the life of their dreams. All right, Jon, let's get into enough about me and my words. I want to hear your voice. So tell me about this word longevity, because you and I were kind of laughing about it going, well, it sounds arduous, longevity, right? Oh my God, am I going to have to live a long life? But you don't view it like this. This word for you is an inspiration. I'd love to hear more.
Sure. Longevity, we were laughing. It is a tired word. It's confusing. Longevity can mean so many things, biohacking, this, that, science, blah, blah, blah. And it just doesn't do, I think, the intention, which is really healthy aging, right? We're all on our own journey. Aging is part of it. And so when I think of longevity, I want to do healthy aging. I want to live this full life for as long as possible. And so that's what I'm talking about, longevity, and specifically health span. So this idea of health span, living free of chronic disease or other ailments that bring down our quality of life. So that's longevity, and that's the book, Healthy, Wealthy Longevity.
It's so cool. And so I love that you've bridged, you're like the science guy too, because obviously you have a background in finance. And I was I saw him live, Gary Brecka. I saw him before he got partnered up, and unfortunately, I think he got a little bit screwed with his partnership with, what's his name? I'm not even going to say it, but
Cardone.
It didn't work out well for him with that. But his background was he predicted people's lives. And I remember him saying his passion, he almost cries about it. I've heard him several times. And I saw him live and met him at an event in Miami years ago before he was like the person. And he was so devastated that he was able to predict people's death. And that all it could have taken was, hey, a phone call to save someone's life. You know what I'm saying? So what do you think about that? And also the other part of that is, what is the responsibility that you feel to help people based on that and the knowledge you have?
Wow, there's a lot there. So let's break it down. First of all, Gary and I share something very interesting. We both have this connection to the life insurance industry. And he was really specifically working in underwriting. I'm a financial guy, right? So I'm a lawyer, finance guy, investment banker guy. Up until, in my career, I had never read a peer-reviewed scientific article in my whole life. But my finance career intersected very interestingly with the life insurance industry. And that was sort of this really, I didn't see this coming at all. And our business was based upon how accurately we could predict how long people lived. And because we were working with the life insurance industry. And it was going horribly wrong. Like, there's got to be a better way. We're using like 1960s technology here. And the industry was collecting blood and urine and getting medical records. That was Gary's business. So Gary was doing that. And they were trying to assess the biological age or the aging process, right? To predict mortality and then to charge the appropriate premiums. So that's the business of life insurance industry.
There is.
And I was like, there's got to be a better way. And I started yelling at my team. I'm like, come on, we can do this on our phone and that, blah, blah. I mean, we're living in the Jetsons, in the world of the Jetsons.
It felt like to you? It felt so archaic.
It just was like, there's got to be a better way. And, you know, I'm yelling at my team and they're not doing anything, of course. And then I realized I'm yelling at myself, you know, and that's a lesson to take home, right? If you want to get something done, right, it's up to us to take full ownership and responsibility. You know, there's a level of delegation, this and that, but at the end of the day, we own it. And so I owned it. I was like, wait a second, it's up to me. And so I started reading every peer-reviewed scientific article I could on DNA, genetics, and longevity, figuring, oh, there's got to be a connection, right? And we have this thing called the internet, and now we have these things called chat GBTs and all this other crap. But at the time, right, I was like reading science and learning what DNA was. I mean, you know, I was sort of embarrassing to say I was, you know, a product of the 80s. And, you know, as far as I knew, DNA was something my mother and father created together to get me. Beyond that, it was kind of like I have kids. So I broke it. So I really learned what DNA was and how it operated. And much to my disappointment, there was nothing there really that was connecting genetics to aging and mortality. And my brother, who was working with me at the time, is also a PhD in chemistry. And he hands me this article that was in the cover story of Nature magazine. And it says this UCLA professor, Dr. Stephen Horvath, has a unique way of predicting how long we will live through gene expression, epigenetics. And I'm now at this point, I'm educated enough to know what I don't know. And I'm like, oh, this is different. I call Dr. Steve Horvath and I say, let me understand something, you know, so I go to his office, short story, and I sit down with Steve Horvath and I say, so this epigenetic clock, what the hell is this? If I have two 50-year-olds and one is your epigenetic age 60 and one's an epigenetic age of 40, which is another word for biological age, is the 60-year-old biologically aged person going to die sooner than the 40-year-old? He says, oh, absolutely, without even a question. I'm like, oh, shit. Have you ever heard of this little thing called the life insurance industry? And that embarked a whole journey. And oh, by the way, the second question I said, because that's the first question on the life insurance app. How old are you? Right. Your age is the single largest risk factor of mortality and chronic disease. As we age, we exponentially increase our risk of contracting chronic disease. And so we want to stave that off for as long as possible, extending our health span. The next question on the life insurance application is male or female. That's a genetic question. So you gals outlive us like a lot. Dang, you got us there. The third question is, do you smoke or not? That's a lifestyle question. And Horvath, much to my surprise, goes, oh, I could tell you if someone smoked, how much they smoke, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, Steve, that's the third question on the life insurance application. We got a business here. And that embarked me on a journey with a company that I was commercializing epigenetic biomarkers for life insurance underwriting. And that's where I connect with Gary on this whole idea. And I was commercializing saliva-based epigenetic biomarkers of health and aging to get this entire industry out of the blood and urine specimen collection business. And by the way, make longevity science fundamental to the life insurance industry, because for crying out loud, it's in their financial interest to keep people alive. And so that's the long version, shorted up as much as I can, about this life insurance industry, predicting how long people live. In my book, I really walk people through what are genetics, what's gene expression, and I connect for people how lifestyle impacts gene expression. And when I learned that, I was like, oh, okay. And really, that's one of the most exciting things about being on this podcast and writing my book, is to share that information with folks. Your lifestyle is impacting your health at a molecular level. And it's really important to know that. And it's really inspiring for you then to take more further action. Because once you learn this, you can't unlearn it.
I know, that's what I was thinking. But it takes effort though. And I think that's the biggest challenge with people like you and I, that we're so inspired and excited when we learn new things, but we're going against the grain of a society that promotes laziness and apathy. And, you know, that's the challenge, right? I mean, when I heard about epigenetics and that it wasn't, I knew I was always built like my dad, and I had similar tendencies as my dad, because my dad was pretty fit, all the way through. A little bit, nervous energy, like I am, right? But he was fit his whole life. But see, he still obviously had issues just as we age. But I think that that's the biggest challenge, Jon, is like, how do we inspire people and educate them to realize that we can make a difference. What is the sexy sell on this?
Ooh, what's the sexy sell? Look at you. You're pretty sexy.
You know what I mean? I'm using that language as sort of a joke, but
Okay.
not really.
Okay.
Because something has to entice people enough that they say, I want that. And
Okay.
you know, and that's the challenge, is it's not enough for a lot of people for just to look a certain way or feel certain ways. They either have to get scared, has to be fear-based, or they have to be inspired enough, you know. And unfortunately, a lot of our decision making is fear-based, you know?
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. First of all, I don't know that society so much promotes laziness. I think, we're inherently kind of lazy, and so that's okay. I mean, I'm pretty lazy at times too, even though I accomplish a lot. And so I'm self-critical on my own watch. I think one of the things, and I talk about it in this book, and I'm very inspired by the folks at Blue Zones. I work directly with them. And one of the things that they talk about, and Dan Buettner specifically talks about, is shaping our environment in a way that reduces the laziness. So what we want to do is we want to make the healthier choice just the easier choice. So if we can make that healthier choice the lazier choice, or not as difficult, it really kind of allows us an easier pathway to a better lifestyle that promotes our health. So in that way, we don't need to promote the sexiness, so to speak, and inspire you to da-da-da.
Yes.
We just need to make the better choice easier. And that takes some intentionality and some awareness. Now, why do you want it? Let me motivate you on why you want it. The same way we can talk, and we're going to get to prosperity, the same way you've heard the phrase, it's expensive to be poor. Okay, because it really is. Your loans cost more. I mean, go to a pawn shop. It's super expensive. Oh, you get late fees. I mean, it's the same way it's expensive to be unhealthy. Okay. And so if I can appeal to anything, let's just appeal to your pocketbook. Let's go back to our life insurance example. If you want life insurance, which by the way, you should have in many ways, that's a great product for folks. If you're unhealthy, you're going to pay 2 to 3 times or 4 times the amount of a healthier person. When you're older, the amount of expense that you're going to incur because of this poor health is just astronomical. So if I can't kind of get you with the sexiness, let me just sort of, and not even with fear, let me just appeal to your pocketbook. And so you can have more money to do the things that you really love to do, support your grandkids, do the things you love. I mean, so that's another way to thinking about it.
That's so helpful. I think that's why I liked Atomic Habits, that book Atomic Habits, so much, because it really talked about, obviously we have the intrinsic desires that we have. And I believe that we have to have intrinsic motivations in order. I mean, it's like an 80-20 rule for me, the way I teach it, because I think we need to have the drive within us and then the motivator on the external front. But it's like creating a slide. It's just easier when you got slippery pants on to go down the slide. That's like the image, you're just going to go much faster with less friction. So what are some ways that you would suggest that people create in their life for an easier flow? Because I love that you described the environment shaping. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, I'm a very big personal responsibility person, and I'm a big self-help person. I studied self-help books for a long period of time. My book really builds on what I think are foundational principles of self-help and intentionality and a positive mindset and getting that inner grit and self-reliance and determination. So I don't shy away from that at all. I think that's foundational. Dan and the Blue Zone, Dan wants to kind of like push that aside. I'm like, no. We got to start with the individual here. That individual does need to take responsibility, but I think he has a brilliant insight, which is, okay, once you kind of have that, now let's just shape our environment in a way to make some things easier. And it's real simple. I mean, so let's just take eating wisely. Okay, let's eat wisely. Let's think about what goes into our mouth. Who can blame anyone for eating salty, sugary, nutritionally horrible foods if that's what's in their pantry?
And it tastes so good.
It tastes so good. Oh my God. At one point in my wife, I threatened to cancel my wife's credit cards if she ever bought another package of Oreos, because she used to buy them for my kids. And if they were there, I'd eat 3, then I'd eat 5, and the pack's already half gone. I might as well just finish this off, because then she'll get another pack. So clean up your pantry. That's a real simple, just increase the ease of getting nutritionally dense foods in your pantry. That's a real good one. Let's see, what's the other one? There's 4 principles, right? Eat wisely, move more. So you got to make movement easier for yourself. Okay. So it's eat wisely, movement. How do we make movement more accessible and easier? How I've done it is I put weights in every place I live. So I got weights over here. I don't go to the gym. They're right next to me. So if I don't use them, it's kind of like, what's your excuse today, pal? Connect with others, having some intention about staying connected to others. Okay. Reach out to a friend if you haven't talked to them in a while. Connect with a neighbor. It doesn't take that much. That's a real simple step. And that's a real important thing around healthy aging, let's just say, not longevity. And the third one is purpose. Find some purpose. All of these things are open. They're not prescriptive. I like weights. If you like movement, walking, gardening, anything other than sitting in front of that screen and sitting on that couch, whatever, to just move. And so that's what I would say in terms of practical steps.
Yeah, it's so good. So how do we disrupt dysfunctional habits? Because I think that we can say, oh, that all sounds good, right? But how do you view the disruption? Because just by nature, you're more, and I am too, one of the traits of conscientiousness, a lot of people who are fit and successful are more conscientious, but there are people on the spectrum that may not feel as conscientious. It's just not their thing, right? So how do we disrupt or create new habits? What motivates you, and what do you suggest people do or think about or take as action in order to disrupt, maybe even destructive behavior?
Yeah, first of all, destroy some relationships. If you need to destroy some negative relationships in your life, we all hate conflict. Okay. We all avoid conflict. I mean, and those who bring it on, we tend to avoid. So we really naturally all want to avoid conflict. The reality is that if you've got negative relationships in your life that aren't promoting purpose, that aren't promoting eating wisely, movement and connecting with others, you probably should destroy some of those relationships or minimize them in your life. Okay. It's a hard thing to do, but birds of a feather flock together. Okay. So beyond that, what I would suggest is, what should I think about? Think about others. Think about those who rely on you, who care for you, who love you. Think about your community and your own responsibility to it. Look, if you grow old and are in poor health and are a ward of the state, first of all, you're not going to want to be there. It's a really bad place to be. The Medicaid benefits you're going to get are basically, you're going to be sharing a room with 4 people you don't know, and it could be far away from those you love and care about. So you really want to care for, that's a selfish thought. But think of your old self. Think of that old self.
Yeah, you got to make sure you're going to get good roommates.
Yeah, or better yet, be in your own home. Be in your own home. Okay. So there's think of your older self when you're infirm and elderly and not able to care for yourself like today. You really want to think about, what should I be doing today to make that scenario better? Because we're all headed there. Okay. But I would go back to, even just care for yourself so you don't become a ward of others, a ward of the state. You're not dependent on your sons, your daughters who are trying to do their own life. And suddenly you have to care for you because you're just in a really tough state. So for those who are stuck, do it for the people you love and care about. If you don't care for yourself, just do it for them.
That's ultimately, I believe, that's so beautiful and so true. It's being the ward of the state. It just sounds so hideous, but it's the reality.
It is hideous. It's a reality and it's hideous.
And it's hideous. It's absolutely hideous. So it's like, that's so disturbing to even think about. It's, oh my God.
I mean, I encourage that. You really need to take a hard look at what life is going to look like at 80 and 90. And I think you mentioned this either on the earlier, like people go, I don't even want that. I want to check out. I'm not going to have any money. I'm not going to have this. I don't want to be a ward of the state. I want to check out. Okay. I get it, but here's the thing. Life is really beautiful. It's really incredible. And when we go back to longevity, your longevity is your most invaluable asset you have, because when it is gone for good. Cherish it. Cherish yourself, cherish the moment and care and exercise a degree of self-care, because it's a beautiful thing you have, and it's limited.
It's sacred in my view, it's sacred. So when you speak of prosperity, and you and I talked about this a little bit too as well, but this whole concept of to prosper, it's another word like longevity that people are like, yeah, but what is the way that we can view this, the whole idea behind prosperity in a way that is inspiring? We go back to that. And I think it's because I always get called in for people who need some cheerleading when they're in a dark time. I'm going to call Kate. And this week, I'm going to be honest with you, was pretty intense. And because I had two people that mentioned suicide ideation. And I always think it's pretty wild when, obviously I lost a son to suicide. So I'm always like, wow, people think it's really chill to talk to me about that. And I am deeply honored to be in service to that because I believe that that's what I've called. You see, I've called to be able to be with people who are in serious lament and be able to still bring joy and enthusiasm. But I also do something very different. I heard you say it and I love it. I think we need to talk more about it, which is there are relationships that are destructive. Nothing about personal development work really it's not just peaches and cream and rainbows and kittens. There are parts of personal development and growth that is just at the base real ugly. And that means we have to face the ugliness in ourselves and the choices we made and to forgive ourselves through the process. But I do believe, and that's probably why I coach mostly men, because I do use more destructive language. Because you think about war, you think about sport, not everything is gentle. Growth is not always gentle. Yes? So we always can bring the love and the inspiration, but I do believe that sometimes, I even said this to two people this week, what do you have to cut off? What do you need to destroy? What habits do you need? Because I'm trying to be funny. Think about cartoons when we were little. Okay, everyone's getting whacked. We think it's funny, but it's also it's human nature to want to be bouncing off of things. So anyway, and that's probably why you surf, because you're a little bit nuts too. But anyway, what do you think about all that?
I mean, I think you're putting your finger on it, which is nature is hideously brutal. Okay. Mm-hmm. Nature is a very cruel machine. It's also beautiful, but it's a very cruel machine. And so I guess I'm empathetic to others who are experiencing pain. I really am, because it is, and we're all on our own unique journey. We all feel things differently. And so how do you, develop resilience, the mental fortitude to kind of keep moving forward on that journey? I guess, I'll go back to this prosperity. What I write about is, again, taking care of your health, your baseline health, okay, through those habits we just talked about, eating wisely, moving more, getting some purpose and connecting with others at whatever level you can, so that you're caring for your health there. And then also that financial let's call it prosperity. Let's not even talk about financial prosperity, but a lot of prosperity is sort of financially driven when we think about it. And there, it's really hard stuff. But the good news is, or the great news is that this country that we live in offers so much opportunity for us all, no matter where you're at, no matter how bleak it may feel, okay? You have a pathway out of it. And so, how your journey is going to lead you out of that is for you to discover. That's your journey. What I would suggest is, take inventory around your finances. And that may just looking at the bills that you've been shoving in a shoebox for the last 3 months and don't want to look at. I do it. Get those bills out, get all the old ones, look at the current, increase. I write about financial literacy as a baseline. Financial literacy is the basis, I believe, for financial prosperity. It's the language of money. So if you're struggling in your finances, what I might suggest is looking at your own financial literacy so you can become educated on this. And I'm not talking become an accountant or anything. In my book, What's an Asset? What's a Liability? How would you develop a personal net worth statement and a personal financial statement, right? Am I creating equity or am I losing equity? So that's that would be the starting point. You gotta, I think in self-help, and when we think about how positive mindset, a lot of it's control driven, meaning do we perceive that we have control over our situation? When we're not in control, that's when it gets real dark. And so you need to figure out how to take control. And by control means getting a baseline understanding of your situation. And then you can start building. one little step at a time.
And
So
ultimately freedom, and prosperity. It's interesting because, when we go back to the word prosper, what does it mean? And I think that the cool thing is that we all can give our own definition of what it means to prosper. What does it mean for you to physically be prospering, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, financially? Because that's your definition. That's
That's right.
ultimately your responsibility to define.
That's
And
right.
there's power in that. And
That's
I
right.
think that it goes back to like, all right, what's your genetic story on money? We all have it, right? But the
Yeah.
epigenetics of prosperity, epi-prosperity,
The expert,
is,
the expiration, the expression, the
yes,
expression of prosperity, right?
right. And how do you want to change the story maybe that you were birthed into? Because that's often, you think, oh, I am my genes. Oh, I am my money story and I can't change it. Right. But the beauty is that we're I don't even know what the statistics is, but I heard, maybe you tell me, because like your genetics are maybe 60 or 70% of you. And then you have some playtime, like 30% or something like that you can
I,
play, and you can change your personality even.
let's reverse that. Okay, let's get clear on that. Okay, science suggests that our genetics are responsible for about 20 to 30% of who we are.
No way.
Yahweh.
No.
Yes,
I got some growth to do,
you
John
got
S.
some growth to do.
Oh,
I would suggest to you that in the financial prosperity world, it's even lower. It's even lower in meaning what you're born with and your financial DNA. And I actually explain it exactly like that, So that's why I look at health from a DNA perspective. We all start with the DNA, same with the financial. We're all born into a financial situation.
right.
Right? Those are the bits. You have to be literate in your DNA, right? You have to be literate in your financial DNA. Okay. And once you have some literacy in both of those, right? And now we can understand then how lifestyle and health is changing gene expression. Literally 70 to 80% of your health journey is going to be driven by lifestyle and gene expression. Incredible.
That's crazy.
And
That
I
means
would suggest
yeah.
didn't say this in the finance world, but I would say it's less than that, like 5%. 5% is maybe even lower, like 1%, because we have so much proof. Why do I know this? There's so many examples of people who start with nothing, less than nothing, and they become billionaires and zillionaires and this and that, or they just become like, I have $1 million in the bank account.
Right.
It's incredible. Came here with this country and they had nothing. They were illegals and they got citizenship and they saved, and it's incredible, the stories. So prosperity is this idea and the conditions that our founders of this country set about to create for ourselves to experience prosperity in the pursuit of happiness, in the pursuit of happiness,
In the pursuit of it.
in the
Not
pursuit
in
of it,
happiness.
not in the achievement of it, in
No.
the pursuit of it.
Along the way.
It's all the journey. Newsflash, folks, there's no destination. It's all a journey. And what I would suggest to you, we'll go back to longevity and prosperity. You want prosperity so that at the end, we're all going to get there. At the end, you can look back and say, my life's been a dream. And that is your dream for you to define and design for yourself.
And it can be even through the hardship. And the reason why I say that is I think that when people see my posts or see me talk about certain things, they're like, does she like faking it? Because, losing a child is pretty horrible. It's horrific. It's horrendous. It's any H word you want. It's just horrific. And yet, I believe, just as we've talked about today, that it's not my destination. He certainly wouldn't have wanted that, for me to surrender into that. So I feel like it's a higher calling to bring the light to others in a world that's struggling. And it expanded my beam of light and the people that I can help serve. And I don't know, John, I'll throw a question at you because I ask these to my clients. I'm curious about what this is for you, since you're like an achiever personality too. But when you were born, you were given all these wildly unique gifts. Who would have ever thought that when John was born, it would be like financial health and unifying those in such a powerful way? Hello. But what percentage of the 100%, if you're 100%, what percentage of you tapped into of your goodness, of the greatness that is who you are and your makeup?
Wow. Two things. First, I just want to throw out a phrase out there for hardship and seeing the greater light. Okay. There's a notion, a phrase that I learned a while ago. It's stuck with me. It's called a seed of equivalent benefit. There's a seed of equivalent benefit in every hardship you will experience. And that seed has the opportunity to grow in a way that will make that hardship not disappear, but you will grow in a way that makes the hardship worthy of something.
Yes, so exponential. If you choose it, though,
you have to look for it.
You have to nurture it.
Look for your seed. And so in every hardship, and the sooner you begin looking for it, the faster you find it, and the faster you begin growing, and the hardship starts to shrink. So the positive mentality starts to take effect. When we think about, I guess your specific question is, what percentage of my greatness have I achieved?
I'm going to throw a number out. Because the only reason why I asked that, because it's cool, I think. People are like, oh, wow, no one's ever asked me that. Oh, which way should I measure it?
I'm 58 years old, chronologically speaking. Biologically, as measured by the epigenetic clock, I'm 48.
Right.
So I'm gonna call it maybe halfway, done with life. So I'm gonna say 50%. Right. I got another 50% in me.
So incredible. And the average successful, high-performing person statistically is between 40 and 60%. And it's interesting when you get someone that says 90%, you're like, oh boy, that got some lessons, right? But the thing is that if we think about it, right, and viewers and listeners, what is your number, right? Between 1 to 100, the average person's between 40 and 60. You got 20s, you got 80s, right? But the beautiful thing is that from your 60% or your 50% to 100 is the goodness gap. This is where your greatness is. This is where your prosperity is. This is where your delicious life is here for you as you age, as you grow, to become all you came here to be. I believe that's what prosperity is all about. Tapping up and using your potential. To me, I say amen to that.
Amen.
So any parting words? Obviously, we're going to have your book in the show notes, and you all make sure you grab his book. I think this has been so fascinating. I love it. I feel like we could go on forever here. Is there any parting word that you would like to share with the audience to inspire them to tap in and live within their greatness?
We all have, as you, I think, just killed it, mic drop. We all have so much greatness and potential in us. Don't give up. Better days are ahead. If you're having hard days, better days are ahead. Look for them. And if I can help in any way make those days better, I'm here. The book's a scaffolding, if you will. Think about your health, think about your prosperity, take baby steps towards it, and you'll find it. I promise you.
Oh, so good. And you're not alone. That other people have walked the walk that you're walking, and your suffering is not for you alone. It's to share and then therefore help others through it. Wow, so good. Thank you, Jon. I really appreciate you and the depth to which we were able to go and the way we're able to play. Life is a playground, and it all depends on how we want to play it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate your message and what you're doing, Kate. Really amazing.
Thank you. And thanks to all the viewers and listeners supporting us on Master Your Life. If you like this, would you please share and make sure to subscribe? And until next time, remember, you have greatness within you. And as Jon so aptly shared, the 4 steps of moving, of fueling your body and sharing your story with others. And in addition, building that community and tapping into why you're here and your service and your purpose. We're all here to do it together. So thanks so much, everyone. Take good care.